For decades, the world has seen Stevie Wonder as something rare. A voice full of joy. A man who sang about love, peace, and hope. Someone who made millions of people feel good, even on their worst days. But what if that's not the full story? What if behind that smile, behind those legendary songs, there was a side of him he kept hidden for years? Because now, at almost 76, Stevie Wonder is finally saying something no one expected to hear. Not about music, not about fame, but about a woman. A woman he once let into his life. A woman he trusted. A woman he now says he utterly hated. Yeah, hated. And the truth is, this didn't come from nowhere. This story goes way back, before the fame, before the awards, before the world knew his name. It starts with a child, born into darkness, but surrounded by sound. A kid who had nothing, but somehow found everything in music. But as his world grew bigger, as the fame got louder, so did the pressure, the pain, and the people around him. Some loved him, some used him, and one changed him forever. So how does a man known for love carry that kind of anger? And who is the woman he's talking about? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. Stevie Wonder was born in 1950, in Saginaw, Michigan. His real name? Stevland Hardaway Judkins. He came into the world too early, a premature birth that led to a condition called retinopathy of prematurity, and it left him blind. From the very start, life wasn't going to be easy. His family didn't have much money. They struggled just to get by. Eventually, his mother moved the family to Detroit, hoping for a better life. But even in those tough conditions, something stood out about Stevie. He heard things differently. Where other kids just heard noise, he heard rhythm. Where others heard silence, he felt music. By the time he was a child, he was already playing instruments. Piano, harmonica, drums, and not just playing them, mastering them. Music wasn't just something he liked. It was how he understood the world. His mother noticed it early. She saw that this wasn't normal talent. This was something special. So she pushed him, supported him, protected him, because she knew the world outside wasn't always kind. And that mattered, because growing up blind in a tough city like Detroit, Stevie had to learn fast who to trust and who not to. Even as a kid, that kind of awareness sticks with you. It shapes how you see people, how you read their intentions, how you protect yourself. And in Stevie's case, it built something deep inside him, a mix of sensitivity and quiet caution. Then everything changed. At just 11 years old, Stevie got his big break. He was discovered and signed by Motown, one of the biggest music labels in the world at the time. They gave him a new name, Little Stevie Wonder. And just like that, his life was no longer his own. He went from a kid in Detroit to a young star in a machine that moved fast and expected even faster results. There were tours, recordings, interviews, all before he even understood what fame really meant. People loved him, but behind the scenes, he was still just a kid being shaped, controlled, and watched. And that's where the cracks begin. Because when you grow up like that, when your life is managed from such a young age, you don't always learn how to build real relationships. You learn how to perform. You learn how to please. But trusting people? That's a whole different story. By the time Stevie hit his teenage years, he wasn't just a rising artist. He was already a star. His music was everywhere. His voice was instantly recognizable. And people couldn't get enough of him. But there was something most fans didn't see. He didn't control his own career. Not yet. Motown made the decisions. What he sang, how he sounded, where he went. And at first that might seem fine. He was young. But as he grew older, that started to change. Because inside, Stevie wasn't just a performer. He was an artist. He had ideas, feelings, a vision, and being told what to do, how to sound, how to act. It started to build frustration. At the same time, there was another problem. Fame can be loud, but it can also be incredibly lonely. Think about it. You're surrounded by people all the time. But how many of them actually care about you? Not the fame, not the money, not the success, just you. For Stevie, that question became harder and harder to answer. He started noticing things. People acting different around him. People wanting things from him. People getting close. A little too fast. And that does something to you. It makes you cautious. It makes you question intentions. It makes you hold back. Even when you don't want to. And as he moved into adulthood, that feeling didn't go away. It grew. Because now, relationships weren't just friendships. They were deeper, more personal, romantic. And that's where things started to get complicated. Because when you've spent your whole life not knowing who to trust, love doesn't come easy. And sometimes, you let the wrong person in. And when that happens, the damage doesn't just go away. It stays with you. For years. And in Stevie's case, it led to a story he kept quiet about for a very long time. A story about a woman who would leave a mark on him so deep that decades later, he would finally say it out loud. I utterly hated her. As Stevie Wonder stepped into adulthood, something shifted. He wasn't that kid anymore, the one being told what to sing, how to sound, how to act. He wanted control. And he took it. In the early 1970s, Stevie renegotiated his contract with Motown. That move changed everything. For the first time, he had creative freedom. No more being shaped into what others wanted. Now, the music came straight from him. And that's when the magic really happened. Albums started coming out that didn't just sound good. They meant something. Songs about love, yes. But also about pain, injustice, life, and truth. People didn't just listen to Stevie anymore. They felt him. Tracks like Superstition, Isn't She Lovely, and Living for the City turned him into more than a star. He became a voice people trusted. A voice that sounded honest. A voice that felt real. But behind that honesty, there were things he wasn't saying. Because while his music was full of emotion, his personal life was getting more complicated by the day. The fame was bigger now. The money was bigger. The expectations, even bigger. And with that came more people, more attention, more relationships. Some were real, some weren't. But the line between the two started to blur. Because when you're at that level, people don't always approach you as a person. They approach you as an opportunity. And Stevie was starting to notice. He was still kind, still open. But inside, something was changing. He was watching more closely, listening more carefully, trying to figure out who was there for him, and who was there for everything else. And in that space, between fame and reality, that's where the personal struggles began to grow. Not loud, not obvious, but slowly and deeply. As Stevie Wonder's fame grew, so did the complexity of his personal life. Love for him was never simple. His first marriage came in 1970, when he married Syreeta Wright. She wasn't just anyone. She was a singer, a songwriter, and someone deeply connected to his musical world. In fact, she worked closely with Motown, which meant they understood each other in ways most people couldn't. Their connection felt natural. They wrote music together. They spent long hours in studios. They shared ideas, emotions, and creative energy. At first, it looked like the perfect match. But being creatively connected doesn't always mean you're emotionally compatible. The pressure of fame started to creep in. Stevie was evolving fast, musically and personally. He wanted independence, creative control, and space to grow. But marriage comes with expectations. And not all of those aligned. There were tensions, different visions of life, different emotional needs. And slowly, things began to fall apart. By 1972, just 2 years later, the marriage ended. But here's what's important. They didn't become enemies. Even after the divorce, Stevie and Syreeta remained close. They continued working together, writing songs, and supporting each other in a way that was rare. That says a lot about him. Even when things broke, he didn't always turn bitter. But that wouldn't always be the case. As the years went on, Stevie had multiple relationships. Some public, some private. And from those relationships came something deeply important to him. His children. Stevie Wonder is a father to 9 children with different women. That alone shows how complex his personal life became over time. One of the most well-known relationships was with Yolanda Simmons. She wasn't just a partner. She was the mother of his daughter, Aisha Morris. And Aisha meant everything to him. In fact, his famous song, Isn't She Lovely, was written for her. That song, that joy, that love, that was real. But again, the relationship didn't last. And that became a pattern. Connection, closeness, and then distance. Another major chapter in his life came when he married fashion designer Kai Millard Morris in 2001. This was a more mature phase of his life. He wasn't the young artist anymore. He was a global legend. And this time, it seemed more stable. They had 2 sons together, built a life that looked solid from the outside. But behind the scenes, things were still complicated. Marriage brings pressure, no matter who you are. But when you add fame, expectations, and a lifetime of trust issues, it becomes even harder. Over time, cracks began to show again. Differences, distance, unspoken tension. And eventually, after more than a decade together, they separated. Their divorce was finalized in 2015. By this point, a pattern was clear. Stevie wasn't someone who avoided love. He believed in it. He kept trying. But something kept going wrong. Something deeper. Because when relationships fail again and again, you start asking questions. Is it them? Is it you? Or is it something inside that never fully healed? For Stevie, that answer wasn't simple. Because behind the fame, behind the music, there was always something unresolved. And that unresolved part of him would soon collide with the wrong person. By the time Stevie Wonder entered the 2000s, he wasn't the same man the world first met. He had already lived through decades of fame. Decades of relationships that didn't last. Decades of trying to balance love with a life that was anything but normal. And then came Kai Millard Morris. She wasn't just another relationship. This one felt different from the beginning. Kai wasn't part of the old Motown world. She wasn't tied to the early years of his career. She came into his life when he was older, more experienced, and maybe, in some ways, more tired. Tired of short-term connections. Tired of relationships that couldn't hold. And with her, it seemed like he had finally found something stable. They got married in 2001. Not rushed. Not chaotic. It looked like a decision made with intention. They built a life together. Had 2 sons. Created a family structure that, from the outside, looked grounded. For a while it worked. There were public appearances. Smiles. A sense that Stevie had finally found something lasting. But behind that image, things weren't as simple. Because marriage, real marriage, isn't built on moments. It's built on consistency. And over time, small cracks began to form. Not dramatic at first. Just differences. Differences in how they saw life. Differences in expectations. Differences in how they handled pressure. And pressure was always there. Stevie's life was still filled with music, travel, attention. Even at that stage, he wasn't slowing down. But family life demands something else. Presence. Stability. Time. And when those things don't align, tension builds. There were moments where things felt off. Conversations that didn't go anywhere. Silences that lasted longer than they should. And slowly, distance started to grow. Not all at once, but enough to feel. Because the truth is, by this point in his life, Stevie wasn't naive anymore. He had seen relationships fall apart before. He knew the signs. And he started noticing them again. But this time, it hit differently. Because this wasn't just a relationship. This was a marriage. A family. And when something like that starts to shift, you don't walk away easily. You try to fix it. You try to hold it together. Even when it's already slipping. The outside world didn't see it. They saw the image. The legend. The music. The family man. But inside the relationship, Things were becoming harder to ignore. The distance that started small was growing. There were more disagreements. Not explosive fights at first, just tension. The kind that sits quietly in a room. The kind that turns simple conversations into complicated ones. Stevie tried to keep things steady. Tried to stay patient. Because that's who he had always been. But patience has limits. And when the same issues come up again and again, it wears you down. There were moments where communication broke completely. Where instead of solving problems, they circled around them, repeated them, built on them. And that creates frustration. Real frustration. Because you start feeling unheard, misunderstood, like you're speaking, but nothing is landing. At the same time, the pressure of his life didn't stop. Music didn't stop. Public attention didn't stop. And trying to balance all of that with a relationship that's already under strain, it becomes overwhelming. There were reports over time that their relationship had become strained long before the public ever knew. And that's usually how it happens. By the time people hear about problems, they've already been there for years. Behind closed doors, things weren't what they used to be. The connection that once felt solid, felt fragile. And when a relationship reaches that point, every small issue feels bigger. Every disagreement feels heavier. And eventually, you reach a moment where you have to face the truth. Not the version you hope for, not the version you try to fix, but the reality. For Stevie, that moment came when it became clear that things weren't going back to how they were. That whatever they had built was no longer holding. The emotional gap had grown too wide. And no matter how much history you share, no matter how much you've built together, sometimes it's not enough to keep it intact. They separated. And even if he didn't say it publicly at first, it stayed with him for a long time. After the separation, life didn't suddenly become simple for Stevie Wonder. Because endings like that don't just end in court papers. They continue in silence. In thoughts you don't share. In moments when you're alone in a room. In memories that replay without warning. People around him moved on quickly in their minds. But for him, it wasn't that clean. There were days he would sit quietly and just reflect. No music, no interviews, no stage, just him. And according to people close to him, that's when he would say things in a very direct way. Not for the public, not for headlines, just honesty in private conversations. He would say things like, "I gave everything I could in that space. I really did." And then he would pause. Long pauses. The kind that say more than words. Because what hurt him most wasn't just the separation itself. It was what led to it. The emotional confusion. The distance that kept growing. The feeling of trying harder, but still not fixing anything. At times, he would even question himself. Was I not hearing things right? Or was I just not being heard at all? That question stayed with him. Because when a relationship breaks down slowly, there's no clear moment to blame. No single scene you can point at. It's just a long build-up of silence, frustration, and emotional disconnect. And that's what made it harder for him to process. There were nights he didn't talk much about it. But when he did, his tone reportedly shifted from sadness to something sharper. Not rage, not drama, just emotional exhaustion. He would say, at some point, you stop trying to fix it, because you realize it's not changing. And that's where that strong phrase people later talked about came from in the narrative he shared privately. I was done. Not in anger at first, but in acceptance. Because once that line is crossed internally, everything changes. You stop arguing. You stop explaining. You stop hoping for the version of things that existed in the beginning. And instead, you start letting go. Slowly. Quietly. Even if your heart is still catching up. And for Stevie, that disconnect between emotion and reality stayed for a long time. Because even after it ended, the memory of it didn't. It stayed in the way he trusted people. In the way he entered new conversations. In the way he sometimes paused before opening up again. Not because he stopped believing in love, but because he had seen what happens when it breaks in silence. After the divorce was finalized in 2015, life entered a different phase for Stevie Wonder. Quieter in some ways. He was still performing, still touring, still creating. But something had changed in his personal rhythm. He wasn't rushing into anything anymore. Not emotionally, not personally. There was a different kind of awareness in him now. More careful, more observant. People around him noticed it. He still smiled, still joked, still brought energy to a room. But when things got personal, he was more selective, more protective of his space. At home, his focus shifted heavily toward his children. They became a grounding force in his life. In interviews, when he speaks about them, his tone softens. And sometimes, he'll say things very simply like, "My kids, that's my real world." No big explanation, just truth. Because at that stage of life, fame doesn't carry the same weight anymore. What matters is what stays with you when everything else is quiet. Music also became something different for him. Not just career, not just performance, but reflection. A place where emotion could still exist without explanation. Even if he didn't speak publicly about past relationships in detail, people close to him say he didn't carry bitterness the way people assumed. It was more complicated than that. There were lessons, there was distance, and there was understanding that not everything in life is meant to last forever. Sometimes, he would reflect in a very grounded way. You learn people the same way you learn music. Some notes stay with you, some don't. That was his way of explaining it. Simple, honest, no drama. And as the years passed, he continued living in that balance between public legend and private man. On stage, he was still the icon, still the voice people grew up with, still the energy that filled arenas. But off stage, he was just someone who had lived through love, loss, and everything in between. And even though one chapter of his personal life ended in a way that left a deep mark, he didn't let it define everything after. Because for him, life was never just about what broke, but also about what continued. And what continued was music. Now, at almost 76, Stevie Wonder is not living the same kind of life he once did. The stages are still there. The lights are still there. The audience is still there. But something inside his daily life has shifted. It's slower now, more intentional. People around him say he doesn't move through life with urgency anymore. He moves with reflection. And when he does speak, it's often simple, direct, no decoration. Like when someone once asked him what keeps him going after everything. He just said, "Music, and my kids." That's it. No long explanation. No emotional speech. Just that. Because at this stage, he doesn't feel the need to explain everything the way he used to. What he lived through in relationships, especially the most difficult ones, didn't disappear. But it also didn't turn him bitter in the way people often expect. Instead, it made him more careful with his emotional space. He doesn't rush into trust anymore. He doesn't open doors as quickly. Not because he stopped believing in people, but because he learned how complicated people can be. Still, when he performs, that weight disappears for a while. On stage, he becomes what the world always knew him as. A voice that feels timeless. A presence that fills every corner of a room. A reminder of everything music can do. And in those moments, none of the personal history feels heavy. It just becomes part of the story behind the man. Off stage, he spends more time with family. His children remain a central part of his world. He speaks about them with pride, but also with calm acceptance that life is no longer about building fame. It's about maintaining peace. And if you listen closely to how he talks today, there's something subtle in it. Not sadness, not regret, just awareness. Awareness that life has chapters you don't control, people you meet, connections that don't last, moments that shape you in ways you don't see at the time. And he understands that now more than ever. So when people hear the stories, when they hear about relationships, struggles, and things that were never fully explained, they often try to turn it into one simple label. But life isn't simple like that, and maybe it was never meant to be. Because even someone like Stevie Wonder, someone who gave the world so much joy through music, also lived through moments that were confusing, emotional, and deeply personal. And those moments don't cancel out the music. They exist beside it, quietly, behind it, and still shaping it in ways most people will never fully see. So what do you think about this video? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. We dive deep into the lives of stars to uncover stories you won't hear anywhere else. Until then, see you in the next one.